Rumor, and I am here with the remaining decks of 2022 that I acquired and did not share in my previous video. So in my little Luna Moth bag, the Forager's Daughter, and this might be a special edition of it. If so, I don't remember what it's called. It's got gilded edges, which isn't great, but the cardstock feels very nice. It's a linen. And this deck had me at the Cardinals. Cardinals are very meaningful to me, and there are at least 2 cards in here that feature them. And the card that they feature on, the reason why they have meaning for me, it really resonates than what cards they appear on. It directly relates to that. And so that was very powerful for me. So on that basis alone, I wanted this deck. I also thought it would look really pretty paired with the Ethereal Visions Tarot, so I will probably be showing those 2 in the spring as decks that are at my tarot table. So I won't show a side-by-side of that now, but yeah, they do look pretty gorgeous together. Here's one of the Cardinals. 3 of Swords. But then the other one is on the Star. And isn't the Star just what you need after a 3 of Swords experience? Love it. Love it so much. This deck I acquired very end of 2022, and I have been working with it a lot. I'm going to be working with it all through 2023, in fact, because I am using the Phantomwise Tarot by Erin Morgenstern, author of The Night Circus, for Sylvain's 365 yellow bricks, which I've spoken about before in recent videos. Reading the entirety of the Wizard of Oz series by reading a chapter a day all through this year, and then doing tarot readings in conjunction with it as like a prompt to reflect on. So it involves journaling. I like that. That might be my favorite. It's been working for what I'm using it for, but once it just goes into my general tarot population, I do question in future how much I'll be pulling it out, but I like it. It's worth having for now. Förhäxa. This one was very close to being in my top 10 tarot 2022. Because I used it a lot last spring, kind of in the aftermath of emotional days. Backs. Oh gosh, this was wonderful to use in the spring, and I had just acquired the Beltane Oracle as part of the Seasons of the Witch series. And by the way, I am just showing the tarot that I acquired in 2022. I decided not to include Oracle in this. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. I've got to see. I kind of need to remind myself what all I acquired. If I'm excited enough about it, I'll do it. But just focusing on tarot. But I had this at the same time as that Beltane Oracle, and they're pretty together. They're really pretty together. Of course, I don't have it out to like readily show you, but, or do I? I do. I forgot that I have these out, the Seasons of the Witch decks out for another video, but this is the one I'm talking about. First of all, their size is similar. This is kind of an oracle-sized tarot deck. But, ooh, very awkward trying to handle these, but I definitely have shown these before, so I have to keep myself reined in so I don't go too far with it. But as I have said about them before, they are so, so wonderful in the springtime when all that plant life is burgeoning and everything just feels so lush and abundant. I mean, those are like the same words that I keep using for it over and over again, because honestly, it's just, those are the words to describe how these decks make me feel, how that time of year makes me feel. And so I think that I haven't tried like pulling this out at another time. I mainly used it back in the spring, but I certainly think that it spans all seasons. You know, that was just me. It's just one of those decks where like when I'm feeling this and I want that Fae energy, it just kind of felt like I was getting guidance from another realm. And it was perfectly liminal for that type of work too, where I'm, you know, contemplating the transition of life into death. And it just makes you feel like you're tapping into another dimension, you know, whether it is that life beyond the one that we know or just another one running parallel. It's just, it's interesting. It's really magical to work with. And so this was definitely a close contender for my top 10. And now I'm wondering, should I have used this instead of what I did choose for my number 10 spot? Maybe I should have. Oh, but I'm showing it now. And not even number 10. I think it could have ranked higher than that. But as I said in that video, my rankings were kind of BS anyway. I can't put things in order like that. But speaking of MJ Cullinane, I also have the Urban Crow Oracle, the indie version of it. But again, I'm not showing oracles today, am I? So this in my little kitty pouch. I just got this one end of the year in a flash sale. Grimalkin's Curious Cats Tarot. I am very curious myself to see how much, in fact, I actually end up using this deck. But I don't own a cat. I don't own any pets. I love cats though, and I love dogs as well. So please take no offense if you're team dog. I don't think we have to choose. We can love them all. We can love them both. But if I had to choose, I would have to go team cat, just because I have a lot of cat-like sensibilities. So I get them. And maybe it's the qualities people don't like about cats that I have the most affinity for, because I also possess those qualities. So maybe you wouldn't like that about me either. But I just felt like I do have a Tarot of the Cat People, which is fan-freaking-tastic. But as far as having something that's more of like a more realistic depiction of the kitties and really capturing their spirit, and this is dedicated to the cats. It doesn't have the cat people in it as well. We do get some doggies though. Look at that strength card. It's really cute. So I guess I just felt like I've seen other cat decks that are out there, and even though I like cats, there's so many of them I've seen, and I'm just like, I don't know. I had a mini version of the Tarot of Pagan Cats. I think I shared that in a declutter video, like one of my first ever videos here. And I did like that. And I thought the depiction of the cats on there was great. But I don't know. I don't even really remember specifically why I moved it along. So I don't know. Apparently I just haven't had enough with wanting to give a cat deck a chance. So this is it. This is my latest effort at that, because I just feel like, you know what? Sometime I might be wanting to tap into this kitty energy that I have the affinity for. If I'm tapping into that aspect of me, I may want it. And I feel like pairing this with my Urban Crow Oracle, get the cats and the crows, because crows are another animal that I find very special. I have shown this before, the Terra Volatile. I think this was kind of a FOMO purchase, I'm going to be honest. Just so many people were talking about it, and linen. It's got that lovely old style vintage aesthetic. I do love that. I do love that. I'm intimidated by this deck though. I don't know a lot about alchemy, which I know it incorporates a great deal, and I feel like there's a lot of other like historical and theological references going on here that could be going over my head. That being said, I definitely look at it and think I could read with this out of the box very easily right now. I don't think it's a deck you have to study to understand and appreciate, and it's probably what it's going to end up being for me. I have set it aside with the intention of going deeper with it. I think online anyway, there's more description of what's going on in each of these cards, but I don't know. I've been studying the Spirit Keepers Tarot by Annabelle Wen, and I feel like after this experience, I'm going to have had my full of like the bookish academic study of tarot for 1 year. I think that might be quite enough. So I should really just pull this one out and just throw the cards down in readings and just start using it in practice and see how I feel about it. But in the meantime, I just feel like, you know, you can just tell there's so much that went into it, and I want to be able to appreciate that. But I mean, like, I know what that means. Honestly, I don't need to study it to understand it. So I guess I was just feeling like I was approaching it with a certain awe and reverence, and feeling like there was more due diligence to do corresponding with that, but maybe not. Maybe I can just use it. Probably just will when I'm feeling that kind of aesthetic calling to me. Let's go on the other end of the spectrum from that. Because Don Michelle made me do it. Housewives Tarot. I already know I love this, and if I had used it more, I'm sure this would have made it into my top 10. But, you know, saving it for this year to more properly dive into in conjunction with the Zombie Tarot by, I believe, the same creator, and then the Tarot of Curious Creatures by Chris Ann, because Dawn Michelle has a really fun video on how she uses these 3 decks together. They speak so well. They just have the same vintage kitschy vibe as one another, and so just terribly fun. So I bought this as soon as I watched that video of hers, knowing that I wanted to work with those 3 together. I had already had the other 2 decks, and so this just makes it a happy, happy triumvirate. It's good though. I mean, to the extent that I have done readings with it and read the guidebook, it's a proper deck. This is not just novelty. I mean, it's the same thing I've said before about the Zombie Tarot and Tarot of Curious Creatures. It's not like just, oh, silly, and because I like this look, kitsch is my thing. They're good readers, each and every one of them. So fantastic, fantastic. And I have put mine in a pouch. So I had this cute cherry one freed up from a deck that I'm going to be rehoming, but the box that the Housewives Tarot came in is cool. It's set up to be like a recipe box with these dividers, so even though I'm not storing the deck in there, it's worth holding on to. Okay, so a very, very, very new deck to me. To keep it in this pomegranate bag. The Lubanko Tarot. So I have been wanting a deck to make me feel uncomfortable. I guess the Marielle fills that spot as well, but that one's like just so much more abstract, which also has a place. I'm just not always like in that zone. So something that's still sort of like clearly enough represented traditional tarot interpretations as far as I understand them with the RWS system, but also giving it its own point of view, and again, just a voice that kind of unsettles me a little bit. And not every image is like that. Like I don't get that from this, but there are just some that are like really raw. You can get some just very like lusty, sensual images that really make you look. Just be clear, like what exactly is going on? So yeah, and then there's just like, it's so beautiful too. So it's like some of the cards really bring this like intensity, and again, it just feels raw. And others are just beautiful. There's a lot of like motion in this art style to me, that's interesting, and it feels like transportive in a way, not fairy tale, but almost like fairy tale kind of world, but like a darker, edgy one. I love this. This is my signifier card, the Queen of Cups, and cool, cool, cool. So yeah, just that kind of like edge. It just seemed like this would be a deck that would like stare me in the face and be like, this is the truth you need to see. Keep your eyes wide open. Do not look away. I'm telling you, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to understand. Got it? Just kind of wanted that. So I haven't worked with this one enough to know if that's what it's going to ultimately bring. But I do like looking through, I feel like it's going to be able to get real with me like that without being a jerk. Because that's pretty important to me too. I don't want my decks to be a total jerk to me, but if they want to get a little sassy though, and you know, kind of put me in my place, that is very welcome. So I don't know. I don't know if this is the deck to deliver what I'm describing. And if it doesn't, that's fine. I mean, I'll probably still like it anyway, and get a different, establish a different kind of relationship with it. And so that's fine. We'll find out. We'll work together this year and explore that unknown terrain. I thought I was almost done. And I am almost done. I actually thought I was done, but now I'm seeing this little weird, I've got a weird stack in front of me here. I have like pouch pals here where I've got like a little family of decks stored in here. I won't get into what the other ones are, but the more recent addition to a pairing that I had kept in here is, I think this is called Tarot of the Sacred Feminine. I can't even tell you where I first heard of it. I think I was looking for a Divine Feminine deck. I otherwise haven't seen much about this one, and I've trimmed my copy. It is a tarot deck, but I took all the borders off and the titles, and I didn't even write the titles, like to give me any sort of indication. And I didn't do it after like studying the deck and acquainting myself and knowing which one was what. Some of them are fairly obvious which it's supposed to be. A lot of them aren't necessarily though, because it's got its own spin, but I didn't want to read it as a tarot. I wanted to use it as an oracle, and so I have nothing. I just cut it down to the images here. And basically what's going on is in this deck is a lot of you know, mythological stories. You know, some are biblical, some might be Greek. I mean, it's really, it's across the board, and some are recognizable, some not as much. You know, there might be some folk tale appearing in here, Egyptian, Well, there, I mean, I at least know that that's Medusa. So yeah, some of these I can identify offhand and some not, at least as far as like what is being depicted, like what story is being depicted, but then it's a whole other matter, like what tarot card it was supposed to be. But again, I don't care to read it that way. This had very mixed reviews when I looked more into it because it has Barbie bodies. Like every female in here does just look like she has a Barbie figure. But I was just wanting to sort of dive into this sacred feminine mythological world and in an intuitive way. And I don't know, the artwork in some way is kind of cheesy, but I also think there's beauty in it too. And I just like 3 down. They're not, I mean, do you see what I mean? The Barbie bodies, and like Julie at Peekaboo Rose would be really upset at all the naked vag. So much naked vag through this. So I might need her to draw in some proper grown-ass woman pubes for me. Speaking of Julie, she entered my mind earlier for another deck that I was showing, and I meant to give due credit to that. Oh, it was the Grimalkin. I saw this at her channel and maybe a couple of times there, and that's what ultimately inspired me to get it. So I'm sorry, I meant to mention that before. So thank you, Julie at Peekaboo Rose, for that. It's super fun. But anyways, put them in a row and just kind of read it like, you know, frames of a story and see like, what is that story there? And I'm about to sneeze. Because I'm tight. Let's see, is there anything less nude? So yeah, just kind of looking across them and see if there's anything that kind of ties them together. It was just absolutely random ass purchase. I was just in a mood and I wanted to crop something, and I knew this was something I was going to crop the shit out of. And so I don't know. I just feel like it's funny to me to have this deck that like I haven't heard anyone else talk about, and I don't even know how well it stands as a tarot deck. I think that some of the associations were pretty loose, and so it's probably one that you would want to use more intuitively anyway. And I also was going into it very ignorantly. I want to say it's a Lo Scarabeo, so it's not like it had a lot of description in the little white book. But I didn't even bother to read through that to know what the story was depicted. Like I wasn't even like looking to educate myself on these different mythologies if there was something I didn't recognize. I just wanted the pictures and to play with it. I don't know, but it's cool, and I like it with the other decks that I've paired it with, and it does give me like a sense of story, and it's just its own thing. All right, so in this little pouch, this came with a deck that I had gotten from someone. They rehomed it along with this. Speaking of like odd like deck families and being in a mood, the very end of last year, and I said this before when I was talking about participating in Sylvain's 365 yellow bricks, which I am using the Phantomwise Tarot for. But at that time, I was just in this real mood of sad inner child and wanting to go down a rabbit hole and just delve into fantasy. And there were other decks that kind of took on a tone that fits the surreal place where I was at. And not even that they're like dark necessarily, but they're just bizarre. And they're ones that I have seen so many times and every single time been like, oh, it's cool, but nah, it's not for me, not for me. So I got this Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. This is the French version. In the UK, I was just able, it was more readily available. I was able to get it faster. I thought too that maybe I would trim it at some point, and kind of in the same vein as that previous deck, the Tarot of the Sacred Feminine, where I just wouldn't even really care about the tarot correspondences and just use the artwork. And it might still end up being that, because I don't really see, this doesn't directly, it's not a one-to-one match for me between the artwork and the card it's supposed to represent. I haven't used it a lot at all, but I find I'm having to make some leaps, so I feel like it is one I'm mainly going to use for the artwork. But whether I actually trim it or not, maybe that's where it also helps that it's not in English, because even though I can understand the French well enough, it might make it that much less noticeable to me, where I'm not thinking as much what it's supposed to be, and I can just make it what it is to me as I'm seeing it in that moment. But we all have our own aesthetics, our own tastes. This is not mine. And yet, I was looking into Alice in Wonderland decks, actually, because I don't know. Storybook, inner child, going down the rabbit hole, and entering a really weird, bizarre place, feeling like I kind of exist emotionally in one. These days, more, well, I mean, it's not every day. It's just, you know, you have your days, right? So when I was having those days is when I acquired these decks. But this really tapped into what I was feeling and what I was looking for in that time in exploring the Alice decks. Adjacent to this very kind of very eerie, bit creepy, fantastical, yet childlike space of the Ceccoli Tarot, I got Tarot of the Magical Forest, which is another one that I'm like, well, what? I never wanted this. Those bugged out eyes, they're just like terrified. But the more I kept seeing this one, the more it became cute. And I did get used to it, and it was starting to crack me up. And yeah. So it's just making me laugh. So I think I just thought, like, oh, maybe bringing in these cards and using them. And I think I do want to trim the borders off of these. I just haven't gotten around to it. I just thought they have this like soft tones between these two decks. And I can talk about what readings I end up doing with these together and show them more properly side by side. But I just thought maybe if this one was feeling a little more melancholy and sad, a little creepy, this could match its creepy factor, but bring in like cute and through that a kind of like levity too, like a little animal companion coming in to cheer these kiddos up. So that was just kind of my thought behind getting these together, with the intent of possibly pairing them together. So then a third one to bring into it, at the Tarot of Mystical Moments, which felt like it inhabits a similar world as this, but a more grown-up one. So if this is child, this is adult. And this is beautiful, also super glossy. I always did think this was beautiful when people showed it. I think it was just a matter of, nothing about this creeped me out or turned me off like the other ones kind of had that initial effect. I think I just felt like I didn't need it. I couldn't think of a place in my collection that it would really fill. And in trying to just be discerning in what I get, I felt like, well, this is one I can always look at the artwork at people's channels or on the internet elsewhere to appreciate it, but I don't really need it as a deck. But then once more, I was just seeing like these softer color tones and feeling like this was just sort of that eerie, fantastical land that I was looking to venture into. Okay, I was talking about Alice in Wonderland before. There you go. So I feel like these are my rabbit hole decks. And I have a reading that I do, I call it Inner Child, Outer Woman, where I will pair a deck for, you know, to speak for where my inner child is at, and then where I am, the exterior, the adult that I've grown into, and kind of using it in tandem. And so that's my intention for using those two decks together. And then again, if I want to bring in these bug-eyed animals, they might have something they want to chime in with too. So that's the idea between that. So my battery is about to die on here, and that is, I believe, all the remaining decks that I had acquired in 2022. Tarot decks. I did get Oracle as well. That's tarot, in addition to the 10 that I featured in my top 10 Tarot 22 response to Lisa Pepez's tag. And yes, so thank you so much for joining me here. Let me know what some of your 2022 acquisitions were, if you had any favorites, if there were any misses too that you're already looking to rehome. Whatever you would like to share with me here, I'd love to hear it. So thank you so much if you stuck this out with me. Bye.